At speaking engagements across the country, Tea Party leader Michele Bachmann has conservatives on their feet.
And you helped pry that big gavel out of Speaker Pelosi's hands. Did anybody see that?
That was last month at the Conservative Political Action Committee meeting in Washington. She also talked about making President Obama a one-term president. Earlier this week, the Congresswoman voted against a bill that would keep the government from shutting down. Here with us now is Republican Congresswoman from Minnesota, Michele Bachmann. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, you did vote against, or basically in favor of a government shutdown, and you said in continuing votes you will continue to do that. Why?
I didn't vote for a government shutdown. What I voted against was the bill that was put on the floor for the 2-week continuing resolution because, quite simply, it did not defund Obamacare. One thing people have told us they want us to do is to make sure that no money goes to implement this new government takeover of health care. We did have that in our previous bill. It was absent from this bill. And what's even more shocking, Esme, we've just learned in the last week or so, the Congressional Research Service issued a report that said that over $105 billion was secretly buried in the Obamacare bill to implement Obamacare over the next 8 years. $5 billion will be spent this year. This is already done. If you talk to any of the senators and if you talk to the House members, no one knew that this $105 billion was buried in the bill. The reason for that, really to give our senators a break, Harry Reid didn't give them the bill until just a couple of hours before they voted on it. The same in the House. We don't get these bills. They're 2,900 pages long. You get them a couple of hours before you vote. You can't even read these bills. This is an outrage, and it's a deception to think that the President and Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi did it just slip their mind not to tell us. They put in $105 billion in spending, and they don't tell members of Congress that if you vote on a bill, you're also voting to spend $105 billion. So we've kind of taken one step forward and 2 steps back because we just thought we were doing pretty good by identifying $61 billion in cuts. That's nothing when we find out that Barack Obama already spent $105 billion to implement Obamacare. We need to get that money back.
Well, let me ask you this. There are many Republicans, including many in the leadership, who voted the other way in support of funding the government.
Because they didn't want. That's because they wanted to. They felt that the Senate hadn't had a chance to look at our bill, which was H.R. 1.
Do you feel the Republican leadership, though? I mean, do you feel that your position and that of the Tea Party really is at odds with many people in the Republican Party?
No, we're going down the same road together. There's not a schism here. We're going down the same road. We all believe that we need to cut government spending. That's a given. I mean, let's face it. President Obama is on track to having us $1.65 trillion in debt this year. So we're trying to identify savings. What we're saying is we need to remember that in an outrageous, deceptive move, we've already spent an additional $105 billion that nobody knew about, because that $105 billion was cut up into little pieces, secretly put in the Obamacare bill. No one knew. You can't do that to senators. You can't do that to members of Congress and the American people. Just hide $105 billion in spending in a bill and not tell people about it. They've got to give that money back. President Obama, Speaker Pelosi, Harry Reid, they've got to give back that $105 billion in appropriations. Then we'll talk about the budget bill.
All right, let's talk about an issue closer to home in Stillwater. Obviously, the biggest issue there is the controversy over replacing that Stillwater bridge.
Yeah.
You are in favor of it, and you said you are in support of a $700 million bridge. Critics will say, well, Michele Bachmann is always crusading against earmarks. How is this not excessive spending or even an earmark?
Actually, this was an $80 million bill if it would have been built when it was supposed to be built in the early 1990s. And unfortunately, because of the intervention of radical environmental groups who filed one delay tactic and one lawsuit after another, they've driven the tab up on this bill now so that we're looking at somewhere in the $600 million range. This is their doing. We could have had this bridge up and built. This is one of the longest unfinished bridge projects in the history of the country. The fact fact is, Esme, the current Stillwater lift bridge is in what many believe is an unsafe position. We're going to wake up some morning and that bridge won't work. And so what are we going to do then? We need to have that travel back and forth. It should have been built a long time ago. It needs to be built now. This is a fundamental function of government to build roads and bridges. It has to be done.